your actions speak volumes. So if you reach a certain point in your career where you think you're above something, you don't think the people who report directly to you are also going to see that.
Welcome, everyone, to the Sports to Business podcast. Today, I have a very special and exciting guest. We have Luke Mohamed from the Pittsburgh Penguins of the NHL. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, I'm really excited because this is the first time on this episode or on the podcast that I'm chatting with somebody who works in the front office of an NHL team. So I'm actually very curious to pick your brain, and I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers are going to get some great insights today as well. So appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah.
How has the previous year been for you? I know we were talking about it before we started with the pandemic, and how has that actually, you know, people don't see that a lot in the NHL and in sports, but I'm sure you've been through a lot of ups and downs. So Luke, walk us through what that was like for you.
Yeah. A lot of fluidity in terms of your day-to-day and what we had to do for partners. You know, so traditionally you would, if you had a partner, there'd be some pretty set expectations in terms of what one would get, when they would happen, how many people would be in the stands. And, you know, COVID, in addition to throwing much of the world into disarray, particularly did that for the sports industry. And so you had to be adaptive. So what someone had maybe committed to a few years prior didn't look anything like that. You know, we were playing fewer games in neutral sites with less fans. Where we were fortunate as a team is we were empowered to figure things out. You know, so most in sports would know the expression or term make goods, right? So we were just living in make goods. And we got, I think, pretty good at it of making things work for partners. So, you know, in terms of where we're at as a business, we're actually, as a partnership team, we're ahead of where we were pre-COVID. So there was a bit of a dip or downturn when COVID happened, and we've recovered that and have since continued to build our partnership portfolio. So that's great. And, you know, on the general overall fan vibe side, I think, you know, a return to 100% capacity was a nice return to normalcy or step towards normalcy for a lot of people. Certainly there's still some trepidation out there, and we're not through COVID. I'm not sure we'll ever be, you know,
we never will be.
You know, we've just gotten used to operating under this is the set of circumstances. You know, the idea of we're going to wait until COVID's 100% gone to do stuff. You might be waiting a while.
Yeah. When did you guys get to 100% capacity?
At the start of this season, we were at 100% capacity. Yeah. And so our last season, we started with 500. Our building was capped at 500 people. So Sidney Crosby was person one. Evgeny Malkin was person two. You know, and after players, refs, doctors, off-ice officials, there was 50 slots left. So I remember, you know, the CEO of PPG and his wife, they had their own suite. You know, then 3 suites over, we had another partner. And once that was lifted, I think we went to 10% capacity or 1,500 people. Yep. And I remember feeling that building just seemed so loud, you know, with 1,500 people. And then a pre-pandemic time, you would be like, this is embarrassing. There's 1,500 people in an 18,000 person arena. But it really made you appreciate what you had before.
Absolutely. It's a different perspective, right? That we didn't get before COVID.
Yeah. And then we inched our way up. We went to 25%. We went to 50%. And then this season we're at 100% capacity. So it's been nice to, you know, see the building full and hear the crowd noise. And, you know, I think is a big part of why people often want to work in sports. You know, they've been part of that experience.
That's great. I'm Canadian, so I'm from Toronto, and you know, unfortunately, even this season it wasn't 100%. It was 100% for a while. Yeah. But then I think there's about 500 people or so. But you know, I think as Canadians, we do get jealous sometimes of the ability of some of the teams, such as yourself, to go back to 100% capacity. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about: is getting together in the stadium and really enjoying the game that we all love. Yeah. And so, you know, kudos to you to get through that and come out stronger on the other side. So, you know, I think I would love to know from you, Luke, what has your experience been like getting to the Pittsburgh Penguins? You know, school, all the roles that you've had, and why sports?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start in high school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I'm not sure anyone in high school truly knows what they want to do. But I liked sports. The idea of making a career out of sports seemed desirable, and it wasn't going to be on the playing surface. It would have to be in the front office. By no means at that time did I understand what types of roles there were in the front office of the sports team or in the sports world. But so my undergrad, I pursued sport management. I actually ended up dual majoring sport management and accounting. And I was just going to be an accountant, sit around your Thanksgiving table, tell your family you're going to be an accountant. They'll all nod their heads in approval. Everyone likes and trusts accountants. They make good money. No one is questioning, what does an accountant do? Who hires accountants? Then come back to that same table and say, I'm going to work in sport management. And they're going to say, doing what? What are you, an agent? Are you going to be a general manager? There's often just no concept.
Yeah.
Or you have to kind of justify your life aspirations a little more. I was willing to run that gauntlet through my family and others. In my first job out of school, actually I said prior to school, I interned with the Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon. So it's the major endurance event in Pittsburgh. And I was fortunate enough that I interned the first year the race returned. It had taken a 6-year hiatus, so it was more or less a brand new race. And they were just looking for warm bodies who can come in and help. So I raised my hand as an intern. They brought me back the next year as an intern, and then they hired me full time when I graduated in 2010. So I was able to be part of a race that went from 0 participants and just this vision of we should have a race to 10,500 to 16,000 to 21,000. So by the time I left there after my 5th year, there was over 30,000 participants in the weekend of events.
Wow.
And I share that growth trajectory because as the happy-go-lucky hand raiser intern / youngest hire, there was so many times where, social media was relatively new. And I said, hey, no one's managing our Facebook account. Could I manage it? And they were like, sure, great. This is take on as much responsibility as you can.
They loved it.
Whereas, if an intern started the Penguins today, hey, could I manage our social media accounts? We have a full-time staff of 10 people who are managing and, running the strategy. That's not to say there's not new things that someone could take on, but the perks of working at a smaller organization / startup, you wouldn't have that autonomy and growth at a structured team like the Penguins.
The other thing that, Luke, I found interesting, and this is, whoever comes on this podcast, I think has a similar mindset. And I love it when this comes up. You said you put your hand up as an intern and you said, bring it on, as you volunteered. You went back again, they brought you back. And then they gave you a full-time role in 3rd year. I think a lot of people expect instant results. And what you've just highlighted is, hey, put your hand up, do the shit work sometimes for you to go and achieve your dreams.
Yeah, I'll give you, so the first year as an intern, we got a stipend of, I want to say they paid us like $500.
Yeah.
Which really, per hour, was not that much, but most internships are unpaid. And then the second year, I think they had said, we'll pay you, if you start in October, we'll pay you $300 a month. The race was in May, and then it's we'll increase your pay to, it was something like you make $3,000 or $4,000. I was like, this is great. I wasn't expected to make anything. And there was another intern, and I distinctly remember her saying she declined. She said, I thought the pay would be more. And I'm like, well, first of all, this is way more than I thought. I wasn't expecting really anything. And I'm not doing it, when you're a junior in college, I'm not sure doing something for the money, unless you absolutely have to, that's probably not the path to follow. And, so I made that, I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice, but sacrifice in the sense of I'm going to take the opportunity, not the money, to take on this role. And I think it was probably 2 or 3 months in where there was something, I was riding in the car with the race director. We were going to a meeting, and there was a thing. We have neighborhood groups that come and cheer on the course, and no one was managing or taking care of them. And Patrice, who was the race director, said to me, you're doing all this stuff with course entertainment. No one's working with the neighborhoods. Would you mind taking that on? And I was like, sure. And she's like, okay. She's like, we'll pay you another $200 a month. And I was like, wow, this is great. I just got a raise and a promotion. And so, and all of that came from just being a hand raiser. There was no job where I said I'm not really feeling that, or, did I say oh, actually, Patrice, I want a career in social media. Even at this stage, in my career, like I'm not above, you'd be hard pressed to bring something to me right now and for me to say like, that's not my thing, right? I'm not into that. I might say, I think the person in the next office is probably most qualified, but if I can help him or her, like, let's do it. But you will see that, I don't know, entitlement might not be the right word, but sometimes people who just feel like they're above something. And I don't think anyone's above any task.
I think for, if you want to become the, head of partnerships at an NHL company, I think this is the attitude that you need. So for everybody watching and listening, right, like put your hand up, raise your hand, do the hard stuff. You do the right actions, eventually you will find results. It'll take you to great places. And Luke, you're a great example of that. So kudos on a great career. Yeah.
And so my trajectory from the marathon, so I was there 5 years total, felt my growth plateauing, wanted to take the next step in my career. And so I moved to Tampa to go to grad school at the University of South Florida. While I was down there, I got to work at Ironman Triathlon. So a nice transition from my career in marathons, and also with the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. And as I was graduating, again, back to being a hand raiser, any city I was visiting over my final break in grad school, I would make the point of meeting with people at the teams there. So I happened to be in DC. My sister lived there at the time, and I reached out to someone at DC United. I had never watched a DC United game in my life. I'd maybe watched 1 or 2 MLS games. Like I was by no means a soccer guy. But I reached out to someone at the team, and this was maybe the 10th one of these types of interviews I had done. Hey, I'll be in town. I'd love to learn about what you're doing. I'm graduating soon. And, for any student out there listening, people are generally receptive to that. Hey, I'm an eager person who wants to learn. Would you have 30 minutes to talk about yourself? It's pretty easy for one to do. And usually that also flips into like, tell me about yourself.
Exactly.
So I met with someone there. I think, remember, it was a Thursday. And it went well. And I left there like, okay, that like maybe there's something there someday, interested in the organization. The next day, I was getting ready to take my niece and nephews ice skating. And I got an email from the chief revenue officer saying, Luke, I understand you met with Maureen yesterday. We have an immediate opening in sales. Let me know if you're interested. And I'm thinking, whoa.
Wow.
So I called him. We talked that day. On Saturday, I got my suit same day dry cleaned. I went back Monday for a formal interview, met with him and the team president. We talked Tuesday, and I had a job offer Wednesday. So I went within a week, less than a week, having quite literally never thinking about DC United in my life, to being employed by them. And it was all, this wasn't a job that was posted on Teamwork Online or that I went through a formal application process. The hockey analogy would be, I went to the net with my stick on the ice, and good things happen when you do that.
Yeah.
This was the 10th one of these that I did, my 10th time in this case, going to the net with my stick on the ice, and there happened to be a puck there that I was able to bury for a goal, or in this case, a full-time job.
Take action, right? Take action. So
I was there 5 years. We went from dead last in MLS partnership revenue to being a top 5 club. We opened a new stadium, Audi Field. We brought in Wayne Rooney. It was a pretty wild ride.
So you were there for when Rooney was there?
I was there, yes.
Nice. How was that?
Unreal. So his signing happened 2 weeks before our stadium opened. So
wow.
I had heard once, someone told me as when I was a student, they said, if you work in sports, the 2 best things that can happen are your team wins a championship or you open a new stadium. And then someone else chimed in because the Cleveland Cavaliers had just got LeBron James back. And they said, or you reacquire LeBron James. And so here, this was our version of that. We opened a new stadium and we brought in Wayne Rooney, I remember his social media following. If you added together every team account and player account for the Capitals, Nationals, Washington football team, and the Wizards, he had more than them combined. So here you've got this global presence, and the team was not very good the first half of the year. He comes in and people were kind of saying, he's here just to retire. He's going to coast. We don't have a chance of making the playoffs. And he proved everyone wrong. Like, he was the hardest worker on that team. He had a couple iconic viral plays. And we went on this run and we made the playoffs. We hosted a home playoff game. And I get chills thinking about it because playoffs were traditionally one of our hardest ticket sales, because you finish the season Sunday and on Wednesday you have a playoff game and you have to move 18,000 tickets perhaps in that time frame. And I remember tickets go on sale. We're hosting the Columbus Crew. I think it was a Thursday night. And I was talking to our head of ticketing. I said, "How are we looking at tickets?" He goes, "Dude, we're almost sold out." And I'm like, "What are we doing? Like, what's offers are out there?" And he was like, "Nothing." It was like the dream had come true, right? If you build it, they will come.
You build it, exactly.
So that was we ended up losing that game in penalties. And to this day is the best sporting event I've been to where the team that I wanted to win lost. Like it had all the ebbs and flows, all the feels to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Great memories. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Luke, you said Rooney came in. This is a great concept, I think, that people would take value out of. Rooney came in. This guy's a legend, and you've seen him personally work as hard as he can. He didn't have to work as hard as he can. He can retire. He can coast. But this guy's putting in the work, right? Is that something that you also believe is true in business for a lot of leaders who, let's say you become a director or a VP somewhere, you had a good year, now you start coasting. And what can people do to not do that? Because we all know that the moment you get complacent, you're done, especially in sports. And I think that also falls to in business as well.
Yeah. I think a continuous drive to get better and challenge yourself. And I think your actions speak volumes. So if you reach a certain point in your career where you think you're above something, you don't think the people who report directly to you are also going to see that and are also going to feel less obligated for it. So if I'm walking around the concourse and I see a beer can that's laying on the ground, I'll pick it up and throw it away. Like someone needs to do that. And if there's beer cans thrown everywhere, maybe we have a larger problem of we need more cleaning staff. But, can you imagine if you walked past that and then you saw your boss or your team president pick that up? You would think like, wow, I made the wrong decision of skipping over that. So, this idea of not being above any task. And when you see your leadership working that hard, and, in the case of DC United, it was Wayne Rooney. At the Penguins, it's Sidney Crosby. He is unquestionably the hardest worker on our team, the most dedicated person on our team. And so when your best player is the last guy out at practice, the first guy out at practice, that bleeds through to everyone of no one's above anything. And the same thing on the business side. How do you be that person that sets the example of no one being above everything or above anything? And suddenly you see everyone pitching in and picking up beer cans in this case, or whatever that may be. And that's how your organization goes from good to great.
Yeah. Tell me more about Crosby, because, he's a Canadian and we love him up in Canada. We all know he works, Sid the Kid, works his ass off, right? Yeah. But you've been there personally. You've seen him do that. How does that actually bring the team together? And there's a reason why the Pittsburgh Penguins win so many games and championships. How does that all work? What have you seen? Maybe a few stories there.
Yeah, I mean, we had a game. In the last couple of weeks. We're up by 1 goal. We're defending in our zone as time expires, and he was sitting at goal 499 at this point. And he goes down with 10 seconds left to block a shot. This is arguably the best hockey player in the world, the best hockey player I've seen in my lifetime, goes down to block a shot. Something that's, someone may say that's a fourth line grinder type of thing, right? Not the guy who's making $9 million a year, but he's not against blocking a shot. And, a game was on the line, a regular season game, not above it at all. So when you're the guy in the second line, by no means could you say, I'm not blocking shots, right? I'm not putting my body on the line. Pretty incredible. And our coach was quoted in the past week or so. I think someone had asked him about, locker room motivation or accountability. And he said something in the tone of, when your best player is, your hardest worker, it makes my job easy in terms of I'm not, having to chastise anyone to be more accountable or to work harder, because the best guy on the ice is already doing that.
How is it being around all these great players and being on the same team as Crosby? Because a lot of times we say, hey, the team's only, from a perspective of somebody watching the game, the team's only as big as the guys on the ice. But we know it's a lot bigger. You are a part of the team, integral part of the team. How is the dynamic with you and, let's say, Crosby? And how do you guys get, how do you work together to build this amazing team that you have called the Penguins?
Yeah, I think, everyone's got their role. On our side, Pittsburgh is the 26th largest market in the U.S., but we have the goal of winning a Stanley Cup, spending to the salary cap. And that requires us as partnership sellers or ticket sellers to go above and beyond what would be traditionally expected of us. Yeah. Because if we we fall short of our goal, that might mean at the trade deadline, we've got to stay static. We can't bring in that winger for Sidney Crosby. We can't do X, Y, Z. So I think it's everyone understanding their role and where they can support the team best. And, back to no one being above any task. And I always, if you venture onto the internet, sometimes people aren't the friendliest about whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the team side performance, I'm like, look, I'm in no position to criticize anyone of what they may or may not do on the ice. And similarly, I wouldn't expect them to come in the office and question, why we didn't close a partnership or why this person's not spending more. And I'm not sure you would see much of that in sports, but you see much more of the fans criticizing players, or coaching decisions. Why did this person start? And I'm like, look, they don't pay me for my own ice opinion. And if they did, it probably wouldn't be a lot because I don't think it's worth much. So let me do what I'm best at doing and let them do what they're best at doing.
What's your best memory of the Penguins?
Good question.
Or a funny story, or
yeah. Trying to think of one while I worked here versus when I was a fan. Actually, I can remember one while I worked here, or prior to working here. So, the Spark Notes history of the Penguins. The team was marred in mediocrity for its first 20 plus years. Got Mario Lemieux, won back-to-back cups in 91, 92. Lemieux had a lot of health issues. The team had a lot of financial issues. The team was bankrupt. They were going to move. Lemieux bought the team out of bankruptcy. But then the team had a couple very lean years where they were dead last in the league. We were not the model franchise. We come out of the lockout in 2005 with these new guys, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah.
And it's this new era. And first year was okay. Second year, they made the postseason. Third year, made the postseason again. And I can remember it was almost like this turning moment where my favorite player at the time was Ryan Malone. He was a Pittsburgh guy, gritty winger. And the game's tied with, I think, under a minute left. Penguins go on the power play. He was known for this like power move where he was a big guy, so he could do these tight wraparounds. He wasn't the fastest guy. And picks up the puck on this wraparound. I can distinctly remember like watching the crowd race to their feet where he's scoring this goal. Penguins go up 2-1, ended up going on a run to the Stanley Cup final that year, losing to the Detroit Red Wings, going back the next year and beating the Red Wings. And, you reflect on that. And I don't think we realized like that was the start of I don't know if dynasty is too strong of a word, but, we made the playoffs 16 consecutive years, 3 cups during that time. The Crosby era had officially begun.
Wow. And it's great for you to actually become a part of a team that's already doing so great and try to make it better. A lot of pressure, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. And that was when I interviewed, that was one of my questions of like, what difference am I going to make? You guys are crushing it on and off the ice. And we still believe there's more opportunity here and chance for someone to make a difference. And, you're given the autonomy to make those things happen, whether it's bettering the game of hockey in the community, bettering the community. So I'll give you a tangible example. So we we're working with US Steel on a potential partnership just last year, maybe a little more than a year ago. And they had outlined, we're not a marketer. We wouldn't do a big sports partnership. But, if you've got an idea that would impact our communities, make a difference and engage our employees, we'd be interested in it. And so we did our homework and we discovered that the areas where they operated, and they had outlined these areas as critical, there was a severe literacy gap in these areas. And the cruelest irony being Andrew Carnegie was the founder of US Steel, used his proceeds to build over 3,000 libraries. And now the people who are literally in the shadows of his plants are the most illiterate parts of Western PA. And so we presented them this information. It was kind of, you could tell a little bit, they had this moment of like, wow,
like eye-opening.
Yeah. And so we said, well, what if we use the power of the Penguins brand to help these kids read, to change literacy rates, to literally change lives? And through months of conversation, we came to a program called US Steel Reading Champions. And this is something we entirely created. So we were empowered as a team to create this program. And there's, a dozen plus people who were involved, and I was just one of them. And this program, we took Iceberg, our mascot, to 2 of the participating schools. And to see the kids' excitement when we told them they got free tickets, and to talk to the teachers who, I was unsure, like, do they want this type of program? Is it just, they're already dealing with part virtual, part in class learning. Do they want something else? To hear the teachers say how helpful this program was, and that they've noticed their kids are more confident reading and they're reading more. The Winning Classroom read 60,000 minutes, which averages out to like 45 hours of reading per child in a school district that has well below average literacy rates. You've got kids now excited and empowered about reading. So those types of things of like where you can make a difference are pretty exciting. And like at the end of the day, I hope the Penguins make money. I hope we win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But like if a kid can read and is now empowered to live a much more fulfilling life, like that's pretty kick-ass. And that's what gets me up in the morning, those types of partnerships.
That's what it's all about, right? And it's great that, somebody in a position as yours, Luke, who has seen it, has delivered great results across different businesses in the best of the best leagues. When you're saying it's all about something more than profit, that's the message I think that everybody has to hear today. So yeah, congrats on that. And, it's great to see that you're doing something which is above and beyond just money. Yeah. Last question for you. What lessons that you've learned, during your career as a sports management student to DC, to Penguins now, what are some of the lessons that you've, from sports side of things or business side of things that you believe can really help leaders today come out of the pandemic?
Yeah. One lesson I always try to put out there is the difference between good and great. So when I was younger in my career, and, they would say like, only the best interns get hired or get jobs and whatnot. I always thought the difference was between good and bad. Like I want to be a good intern, not a bad intern. And the reality is, and I'm using interns as an example, but this could apply to anything. Of the 200 interns I've seen in my life, probably 190 of them have been good. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They did fine.
Yep.
Probably 5 of them were bad, where you're like, this person like should be fired as an intern. They don't listen. They don't show up, whatever. The other 5 have been great. And those 5 are the ones that you would go to bat for, that you'd want to get a job for, you would give an endorsement for. And it's not that other 190 did anything wrong, but they didn't go that extra step to be great. They weren't a hand raiser. So the same thing applies to leadership in an organization or leadership in any role. I think it's easy to be good, right? You can show up and be good without much extra effort. But how do you be great? How do you push the envelope and say, you know what? We could do a one-off event with US Steel, but what if we do a 4-month reading program? And what if we provide books to this classroom? And then if we build a traveling trophy, we forge literally from steel, a traveling trophy. What if we bring those kids to a game? What if we get them a limo shuttle to the game? What if they get to keep the trophy in their classroom? What if we give them and their families all free tickets? What if we get AT&T Sportsnet to come to their school and do a full assembly? And then you just how do we keep making this better? And at the end, you look back and you've done something great as a team versus something good, right? We could have stopped at, let's do an assembly where we give kids books and leave. Check the box. Would have been far easier to execute, right? It's been far less time on it. Would anyone learn how to read? Probably not. Would it be good enough? Probably. Would it be great? No. And it wouldn't be something, I wouldn't talk about good things on a podcast. I would talk about great things.
Exactly.
So I would say just keep pushing that envelope to be great, not good.
So powerful. Aspire for greatness. Yeah. Amazing. Luke, how can people learn more about you personally? How can they connect with you personally? And how can anyone interested in connecting with you in a partnership perspective find you and reach out to you guys?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I generally, if someone reaches out to me, Luke, I'm interested in whatever, give you some time to talk, pretty receptive to that. I'm sure some messages slip through the cracks, but the idea of someone wants to learn, like there were dozens of people who helped me along the way and still help me. So the idea that I would be like, no, sorry, kid, I don't have time for you, like, this is rude. And I'm sure those people exist out there. In fact, I know they exist, but there's a lot of people, including myself, who are willing to say like, yeah, take 20 minutes, while I'm walking my dog, we'll talk and answer any questions you may have. So that's probably a good way. And then even on a partnership front, typically we're the ones finding them and having those conversations, but, LinkedIn as well, I would encourage anyone, from a professional environment, be more active. And and it's hard at first. You're like, what am I going to post about? Well, you're probably doing things in your life that are exciting, and you may have a smaller following at first, but continue to talk about things your teams are doing, things you're excited about, and building your brand. I think someone could view my LinkedIn and have a pretty good idea of A, what I do for a living, and B, how I go about it. And that's in a business setting, that's a little tougher. But the same way you might have an Instagram profile, right? If you went for my Instagram, you'd be like, this guy does everything with his dog. He hikes and plays hockey. I'm like, it's my life. My LinkedIn profile would be similar. Probably not enough dog photos on my LinkedIn, but maybe that's a good way to go good to great here is more LinkedIn dog content.
Exactly. Invest in your brand. And last question for you. What is the name of your dog?
It's Louis. He was a rescue. So I was his fourth foster and his second adopter. He lived no fewer than 10 places the first year of his life.
Wow.
And he was like I got him. He was a good dude. He wasn't violent or anything, but he just had so much energy and had like such a strong separation anxiety. So like we'd go for walks and he would see you a block away. He'd start barking and jumping. I'd walk outside from my house. He'd start barking and jumping. And I remember thinking like, dude, this is not like, I can understand why people have given him back, but we got acclimated to one another and grew to appreciate of like, dude, sometimes this separation anxiety is annoying, but to come home and there's a living creature whose life is just made by your arrival, it was pretty nice. I wish we had a dog policy in the office. That's another good to great thing. Let Luke bring his dog in.
Well, if you're listening to this, anybody in the Pittsburgh Penguins office, hey, dog policy might be the next thing to discuss. So
maybe I'll just bring him in and we'll just test it out.
Just bring him in.
He might be too much. I mean, it's like a good amount of energy, but he would just run around and sniff people all day. And that's probably good every now and then. I'm not sure it's good every day.
Every day. Well, Luke, you're a great guy. Keep it up, man. Appreciate you being on the podcast. And I'm sure a lot of people can learn a lot from you just watching you lead. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.